start. There you go. Keep. Don't press it no more. You don't do anything. You don't do anything anymore. All right. Here. What time is it? Into the Wild is an excellent book assigned for English classes all throughout Dana Hills High School. And so today we're asking students a question of what role the government should play in their lives. And should the government have done something to stop Christopher McCandless from meeting his unfortunate demise? The life of Christopher McCandless is one shrouded in much debate. His life being documented in John Krakauer's famous book Into the Wild and Sean Penn's critically acclaimed movie under the same name. Chris was a 24-year-old graduate of Emory College, where he left his home to live a life in the adventures of the Alaskan wilderness. Chris found refuge in an abandoned bus where he lived for 16 weeks before passing away. This story brings up an excellent point. Should the government play a greater role in people's lives, and in the case of Chris, stepped in and possibly prevented his death? Here we sat down with a man by the name of Eliseo Miramontes who refused to sit down, seeming to get very, very aggravated when we told him to repeatedly sit down.
Where we're going. All right. Personally, I feel like the government shouldn't play a big role in this because in people's lives, I believe in free will. I believe as long as we're not hurting anybody physically, then it shouldn't matter what we do. Government, they gave me a parking ticket the other night for no reason. The police stopped me because I'm a minority. Like, it's dumb because they said my window tint was too dark. That's bull. I think Chris had every right to do what he did. All right. I think he found a purpose in his life, and he wouldn't have done that if he didn't go out there by himself. If the government had done that, I don't think he would have been happy. I think he died happy, even if he did die in a kind of way. You know? Yeah. What else, John? What do you want? What? So I believe the government shouldn't play that big of a role in mandating what we do as long as we're not hurting anybody.
It was very apparent that Eliseo had very strong opinions about Christopher McCandless and the role of government in people's lives. We got a different perspective from another fellow student in Eliseo's class, Fabiola Garcia.
Fabiola, go off.
Okay, what should I say? Ooh, ask me a question. Okay, well, I obviously believe that they shouldn't have stopped him, and they did a good thing in not stopping him. For anyone that argues that the government should have been protecting Chris in this way, I argue that they shouldn't have. Because, well, I feel like that's the price to pay of living in the free world, you know? Home of the free, land of the brave. If I want to go and travel somewhere by myself, isolating myself from everyone, I should have the right to do it. Yeah, that's all I got. I'm sorry, yeah. You just put me on the spot, JP. Like, you bring me out here and you make me, like... I mean, listen, if the government starts, like, doing that to people, this is gonna, like, they're gonna start... if the government starts, like, getting involved in people's, like, problems and stuff, like, I think the government should always be there when we need their help. If I don't need the government's help, I don't think that they should be involved in any way.
Do you think the government should have stepped in to help Christopher McCandless? You said that they should step in when they need to help somebody. You think they should have maybe helped him?
Okay, but Chris never asked for help. You know, Chris, that's the price that Chris took. You know, his life was the price that he paid to be by himself, you know?
In John Krakauer's book, Into the Wild, John Krakauer depicts a conversation between Chris and a man by the name of Galen. Galen asks Chris if he has a hunting license, to which Chris replied, "Hell no." Quote, "How I feed myself is none of the government's business. Their stupid rules." Upon examining the life of Chris McCandless, one is very clearly aware of his anti-government stance. From not carrying an ID on him at all times when he was adventuring to burning his money, Chris was not too fond of government. To further extend, we asked another student in Ms.Stritz's English class about their opinion on the government's role in our daily lives.
Well, I feel like the government does help people, but in Chris's standpoint, I feel like they shouldn't have helped him at all, because with Chris's, like, abuse and violence at home, the everything going on, I feel like he needed kind of like a cleanse or like a release from all his, like, hate and all the stress on his shoulders. I feel like what he did going out into the wild, some think it was kind of risky, or he was kind of like doing it because he's mentally ill. I don't feel that way. I think he just wanted to be kind of free, and it's his own life. And I feel like what he did, he needed it, even though he did die doing it, but I feel like what he did, he was happy of his choice.
We managed to score an interview with another one of Ms.Stritz's students, Juan Pablo Granados. I personally think that Christopher McCandless had every right in doing what he did. I mean, look at him. You know, he was living his life. He went out to explore the Alaskan wilderness, and no government policy put in place could have really stopped him. Because at the end of the day, Chris made a decision. You know, there were things like social security numbers. There was things like money, things that the government requires for you to live in society that he got rid of and was able to live without. I mean, he burned his social security card. He burned his money. He was in Slab City for a while, which is a lawless city in Nevada, I believe. And so, regardless of the policies that were put in place to stop Christopher McCandless from living a life that he probably shouldn't have been living, he still managed somehow to live a life that was wild and crazy. I mean, what really can you do to stop someone that's determined to go explore? You can't really do a lot to stop them. Throughout the book, he was very much a lawless person. He didn't really have a lot of things that he conformed to. He didn't wear socks, you know, he didn't really shower, and he was homeless for a while. I don't think Chris was cut out for the modern world. I don't think that the government putting regulations on Chris would have changed him as an individual. He still would have been kind of out there doing his own thing. After hours of extensive research on the life of Christopher McCandless, we have come to the conclusion that in no way should the government have played a major role in stopping him from pursuing his adventurous lifestyle in Alaska. Christopher McCandless lived a rather fruitful life, dying at 23 in the remote springs of a bus in Alaska. However, we do not believe that the government should have stopped him from pursuing that. Matter of fact, we believe that the government should not play a major role in controlling and monitoring people's lives. Chris himself had many anti-government sentiments sprinkled throughout the book, and from his sparse lifestyle in the wilderness, you could tell that he was not a big fan of government. There is no government regulation that could have stopped Christopher McCandless from doing what he was doing, for he was destined to go out into the Alaskan wilderness alone and explore. Thank you for tuning in on ABC7, and that's all the time we have for you guys here tonight.